Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. I'm absolutely thrilled to be your guide for today's explainer. Now, if you joined us for our previous lesson on the automation of integration testing, you know we really got our hands dirty. We were setting up simulated liquidity flows, dealing with deterministic state testing. Basically, we learned how to test the plumbing. But today? Today we are taking a massive step back to look at the entire house. Our focus is synthesis, integration strategies, and next steps. We're going to take all those automation tools and call patterns we've been working with and synthesize them into a clear, structured architectural blueprint. Here's the agenda for today's architectural schematic. We're going to cover 1. The master blueprint, 2. Contracts as services, 3. Connecting the pieces, 4. The 4-stage workflow, and finally, number 5, weighing the trade-offs. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the master blueprint, from automation to architecture. Okay. Let's be real for a second. We have all been there. You start a new project, you add one function, then maybe another, and suddenly you're staring at this massive, monolithic God contract that literally does everything. It manages tokens, calculates fees, it probably even tries to make you coffee in the morning. But the reality is, when you actually try to deploy or run that beast on the Ethereum virtual machine, it costs an absolute fortune in gas. And worse, if one tiny little thing breaks, the entire system comes crashing down. So today is all about fixing that. We're moving away from chaotic, monolithic script writing and learning how to plan a cohesive, multi-contract ecosystem. We have to codify our integration choices so our systems are modular, safe, and, won't totally bankrupt us on gas fees.
Moving right along to section 2, contracts as services, or as I like to call it, the restaurant kitchen.
The crucial mindset shift here is learning to treat contracts as services. What does that mean? Well, it means treating every single contract as a highly specialized stateful service that operates within a shared EVM transaction boundary. Now, you can think of a cross-contract call kind of like an RPC interaction in Web 2, but there's a huge catch. Unlike traditional web services, these smart contracts share gas and their execution context, meaning if one contract fails, the whole transaction might revert. Boom, done. By treating them as distinct services, we can actually reason about who owns what data, exactly what happens if something fails, and exactly where our vulnerabilities are hiding.
To make this super concrete, because I know this gets abstract fast, I love using the restaurant kitchen analogy. Imagine your EVM transaction workflow is a completely slammed restaurant kitchen during the Friday night dinner rush. We can map our contracts to 3 really crucial roles. First up, the orchestrator. This is your head chef. They aren't back there chopping the onions, right? No, they coordinate the multi-step flow. They call out the orders. Next, you have the executor. These are your line cooks. They perform the actual heavy lifting business operations, swapping, minting, transferring. They're updating the local state. And finally, the ledger. This is the cashier. They store the authoritative balances and the long-lived data. You absolutely want the cashier's operations to be tightly constrained and incredibly secure. When you assign roles like this, it just clicks. You immediately realize your cashier, your ledger, needs absolute immediate guarantees, whereas your line cooks might have a bit more flexibility.
Which brings us to section 3, connecting the pieces. Let's look at the mechanical gears that actually run this kitchen. We essentially have 2 main options for wiring these different kitchen stations together. First, we have atomic internal calls. This is a direct call within a single transaction. The big guarantee here is immediate atomicity. That means either the whole thing succeeds flawlessly or the entire operation completely reverts. It's fantastic for strict rules like making sure a token transfer only happens if the ledger successfully updates. But the cost? You're looking at higher gas and much tighter coupling. If you change one contract, you might break the whole chain. On the flip side, we have queued or asynchronous patterns. Here, the orchestrator just drops a request into a queue to be handled later. The guarantee is eventual consistency. The trade-off? You get lower per-transaction gas, but you're adding latency to the system. Understanding this gear shift is literally the secret to engineering a protocol that can actually scale.
Let's dive into section 4, the 4-stage workflow. These are your step-by-step assembly instructions.
If you've been working your way through the Solidity and Ethereum quests here at Forge College, especially as we tackle this multi-contract system in our final quest, you know that structure is everything. You just can't wing this stuff. So we use this exact 4-stage workflow to turn ad hoc coding into a durable policy. Step 1 is inventory. You need to catalog every single interaction and hunt down those hidden dependencies. Step 2 is pattern selection. Pick 3 to 5 standard patterns for your entire system. Please, don't invent a totally unique behavior for every single endpoint.
Consistency is your best friend here. Step 3 is test and instrumentation. Translate those chosen patterns into automated tests and continuous integration gates. For example, if it's an atomic call, test for cross-contract invariance under failure conditions. And step 4, policy documentation. Write it down. Create a decision matrix. Make a checklist. Make these artifacts a mandatory part of your pull request reviews. This workflow is what turns a messy, abstract idea into a rock-solid, verifiable engineering machine.
And that takes us to Section 5, weighing the trade-offs. Time for the final inspection of our machine.
Here is the ultimate engineering reality. There are absolutely no perfect solutions. There are only trade-offs. On one side of the scale, atomicity gives you very simple correctness. If a process fails, it fails immediately and safely. But it tightly couples all your components together, which makes future upgrades way riskier. On the other side, eventual consistency gives you massive throughput and modularity. You can swap pieces out easily. But it pushes the complexity outward. Suddenly, you're dealing with complex reconciliation and relying on off-chain relayers. As the architect, you have to make the call. Do you keep the complexity tightly inside the transaction where it's safe but super expensive? Or do you push it outward where it's modular but a lot harder to track?
Because of those unavoidable trade-offs, we arrive at what might be the single most vital piece of advice in this entire explainer. Prepare failure mode playbooks. I'm serious. For every single integration pattern you choose, you absolutely must list out the likely failures and the exact steps for remediation. If you're relying on some off-chain relayer, well, what happens when it suddenly goes down? Documenting these specific trade-offs and preparing for both on-chain and off-chain failures is exactly what separates a nice theoretical design from a robust system that can actually survive contact with reality. Operational readiness is what turns a massive design risk into a totally manageable reality.
So all of this naturally leads to one big question. What happens when we scale? That's the million-dollar question, right? The synthesis notes, the decision matrices, and the testing checklist that you're creating using this workflow, they aren't just busy work. They are the direct, absolutely essential inputs you're going to need when you start evaluating things like batching, sharding, and advanced composability down the line. By documenting your integration trade-offs right now, today, you are building the exact foundation required for the principles of scalable contract design, which just so happens to be exactly where our journey is heading next.
And that wraps up our blueprint for today. Unum, a really compact, powerful framework to convert complex cross-contract designs into a repeatable, testable strategy. Just remember that kitchen analogy, be sure to standardize your patterns, and always write out those failure mode playbooks. But I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If your protocol faced a massive 10x spike in liquidity tomorrow morning, would your architecture hold up under the pressure, or would your God contract completely crumble? To figure that out, master more advanced Web3 concepts and really take your architectural blueprints to the absolute next level, make sure you head over to forge.college. This explainer was brought to you by Forge College. Keep exploring, keep building structurally sound systems, and I will see you in the next explainer.